It'll be really hilarious when they cast their Kolaghan's command or whatever to kill our Titan, and we just go, persist it back into play. No big deal. Hello, and welcome, everybody. We are here with something new just to start right off the bat. I posted a poll over the weekend on the Twitter. Obviously, if you don't follow me, you would not have seen this and not have had the chance to leave your feedback. And of course, there's only 13 votes on this particular poll, so this just proves that your opinion does matter, and if you want your opinion to be known and don't want to miss the next Twitter poll whenever it happens, then you need to sign up for Twitter and follow my account, of course. But we encountered an interesting situation, so of course I was asking what we should be playing for this week's league, and we have a dead tie between two of the results: the Reamulator list by Mistakenn and my own personal F&M amulet list. So, what better to do than to settle this with a coin flip? Alright guys, so I found just some random coin flip site online. If it lands on heads, we'll do the Reamulator list, and if it lands on tails, we'll do my F&M list, and yeah, let's click this button. Alright, heads, so we're playing Reamulator. And of course, I included the Reamulator list in the comments for reference here. This is the list that we're talking about when we say Reamulator, so this is Mistakenn's list. Maybe we'll have a few changes, but let me get all that set up, and I will see you guys in MTGO. Alright guys, so we're here with my version of the Reamulator list, and let's talk a little bit about the idea behind this deck. So first of all, I'll just briefly mention a couple card choices that I made as opposed to the original choices from the list. So you'll notice that I've included one copy of Lotleth Troll, the 2-mana 2/1 trample, discard a creature card and put a +1/+1 counter on it, and pay a black to regenerate it. This is because sometimes you get stuck with a Primeval Titan in hand, and you would like to be able to bring it back with Persist, which is of course one of the two cards that we're playing as part of our namesake here. 2-mana sorcery, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. So of course, with Lotleth Troll in the deck, we can pack for a Lotleth Troll, play it and discard a Titan, and then persist the Titan into play, all on only 4 mana, and so that's kind of the idea. And we're also playing one copy of a Necrogen Spellbomb, the 1-mana artifact. For a black, you can sacrifice it to have a player discard a card, and of course, actually, the idea here is to target yourself with the Necrogen. Again, this is so you can ditch a Primeval Titan from your hand and then persist it into play, but of course, if you naturally draw the Spellbomb, or just don't have the Reanimator pieces, you can pay 1 and sack the Spellbomb to draw a card, of course. And as a 1-mana artifact, this is something we can tutor with Saga. I'm playing these two cards over the 2 Bone Shards that were originally in the main board of the list. I talked briefly with Mistakenn on Twitter and DMs, and Mistakenn seemed to indicate to me that the main deck of Bone Shards were pretty replaceable, so we've got that going. And we also have actually cut one copy of Unmarked Grave, the other card from the namesake combo. 2-mana sorcery, search your library for a non-legendary card, put that card into your graveyard, and then shuffle. So I will talk about the numbers a little bit in just a second, but let's just talk about what is going on in this list. So, other than having your normal amulet shenanigans going on, we've got amulets, Grazer, Dryad, Titan, not playing any Azusas, which is of note. We are also playing a secondary way to get our Titans into play, and that is through the use of Unmarked Grave to search your library for the Titan and put it in the yard, and then persist to bring it back. And of course, failing having a copy of Unmarked Grave, you can discard the Titan to a Lotleth Troll or to Necrogen Spellbomb from your hand, and then persist it back into play. So we do have a couple of things going on here, and we can even use Saga to set up the discard outlet for our Titan if we need to persist it. So we have a couple different ways of cheating Titan into play through the use of our graveyard. But that is not the only use for the card Persist, of course. So the 2-mana sorcery, returning something from your graveyard to the battlefield, is actually extremely potent against opponents who are playing discard spells. If they Thoughtseize away your Titan, thinking that you'll probably not draw another one, or trying to make it so that you have to top deck another Titan. Well, in addition to having 3 other Titans and 4 Summoners packs, we also have 4 copies of Persist to be able to grind through our opponent's discard. So against particularly Thoughtseize decks, Persist tends to be very, very good. And in fact, in the past, I've even won by sighting in Tireless Trackers, having them kill it, and then persisting Tireless Tracker back into play. Believe it or not, So persist as just a way to grind against discard spells or against counter magic, for example. Very cool that we can use this as a second copy, quote unquote, of Primeval Titan. And sometimes you just play the turn 1 amulet, turn 2 second amulet, play Rot Farm, floating 4, Grave, Persist, put Titan into play, and you just had all the combo pieces the whole time. That is definitely something that can happen. But otherwise, we're doing the, like, quote-unquote normal amulet stuff. We did have to contort the mana base a little bit, so you'll see we're playing a ton of fetch lands and 3 overgrown tombs, and only 3 forests. I think 3 is the number where you want to be. The 2 are very necessary. The 3rd forest is to play around your opponent being able to destroy one of your 2 forests with something like Stone Rain or Pillage or whatever. We do play 1 Crumbling Vestige as a emergency black source, but also as an untapped green source as well. And here we're playing a split that favors Rot Farms rather than Growth Chambers. We're only playing 3, and that's because we're only having access to 1 Tolaria West here, and thus we need to have access to Simic Growth Chamber less frequently. Originally in the list, there was a Zagoth Triome, the bug Enter Battlefield tapped cycle land, but I'm not a big fan of Enter the Battlefield tapped lands, even if we can fetch them out. So I figured I'd rather just leave that one be and let us do the Tolaria West thing just by resolving a Titan and not fret too much about it. Another difference that I'm choosing to go for here is including the 1 Boros Garrison and the Slayer Stronghold Sunhome Vesuva package, rather than going for Hanweir. I found that in this particular list and in Amulet in general, just having access to these 3 lands plus Vesuva in your deck just increases the power level of what you're doing. If your opponent thinks that you're trying to set up a Unmarked Grave Persist like combo turn, and then you just Titan them with double Amulet and they lose, the only way they're going to realistically lose in that scenario is with these 3 cards. Of course, I suppose you could set up a kill with Valcuts and Dryad, but the original list wasn't even playing a second Valcut anyways, so which ironically I prefer to include here as well, just to enable the Dryad plus Titan kill a little easier. So we are playing a second copy of Valcut. We're playing the Garrison Slayer Stronghold Sunhome. We got a main deck Bajuka Bog here, and this is obviously because it's already a black source, but also we get to clean up the house from our opponent's DRCs and their Murktide Regents. Hopefully we can spike the graveyard before those things become relevant. Yeah, I mean, we're still playing 4 sagas. We've basically got all the things that you would want to see in a normal amulet list here. Plus, we got the combo. And again, grinding against discard spells and counter spells is the main reason why I would say this combo is even playable in Amulet, as Persist is actually a decent card for the deck on its own, playing through Disruption. The worst card in the deck, by far, is Unmarked Grave, as just searching for something and putting it in your graveyard, not really very strong unless you have exactly Persist, and that's about it. I did do a quick gather search of creatures that would put creatures from your graveyard into play. There's nothing that we can Summoners Pack for, no green-black Reanimator creature type thing. So, unfortunately, we don't really have another way to make use of Unmarked Grave, hence the reason why we've gone down to 3 copies, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And then in the sideboard, we are playing, of course, Soul Guide Lantern over Relic of Progenitus. Not only will this exile on a one-shot ability when it comes into play, but it also lets us sacrifice to exile only our opponent's graveyard, as we might need to be keeping our graveyard intact for Persist. So that's the reason for the Soul Guides here. We're also playing 2 copies of Bone Shards, a 1-mana sorcery that you have to sacrifice a creature or discard a card in order to cast it, and it destroys a creature or planeswalker. So this will be very good in the hands where you need outlets for Persist, or just otherwise have important creatures that your opponent will have that you'll want to kill, even if it means you discard a card. For example, your opponent leads on a turn 1 Ragavan. It's probably better to discard an extra land or something in order to Bone Shards that thing out of play, as you will lose to it otherwise. And of course, if you just pitch a Titan and then pay 2 mana and immediately Persist Titan into play, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then we have 2 trackers, again, to help us with the grindy matchups. We do have Persist to play through discard, of course, but when we have as many dead cards as 3 Unmarked Graves, Lotleth Troll perhaps, maybe a couple Grazers to take out in those matchups, we do have a tracker to bring in as an additional threat. We have 2 copies of Dismember, as we don't want to max out on Bone Shards because it does require us to discard a card. Dismember here is even better since we can oftentimes pay for some of the black and not lose as much life. But of course, we are going to want answers to our opponent's Ragavans and other things. We have 2 forces to play through Blood Moons and Ensnaring Bridges and that kind of thing, and 1 Foundation Breaker as well. Hopefully, we could persist Foundation Breaker back into play for a second reusage here against some of these decks. That would be pretty cool. And then we do have 2 copies of Engineered Explosives, as we do need something against the really aggressive creature-oriented decks like Merfolk, Humans, Hammer Time even. Explosives on 1 is very good against Hammer Time. And we do have 1 Talari West here, the lone Talari West, to transmute and set up explosives. So, yeah, that's the deck. And if it looks like it makes no sense to you and you have no clue how this deck is possibly competitive and how people can 5-0 with it because they have, well, hopefully you'll be able to see that in this league. So, that's enough of an introduction. And I'll see you guys in match 1. Alrighty, let's hop in here for the match. We just have Unmarked Grave and Persist in our hand just off the jump. It'll be our plan from the very beginning. Of course, we want to beyond the play. We do have a Grave, but no Persist. Unfortunately, if we draw Persist, then the Grave will be great. Otherwise, we have the Saga Amulet, just the normal Amulet stuff going on, so we're definitely going to keep this. Especially in Game 1's turn 1 Saga Amulet and a turn 2 Bounce Land is pretty good, must say. Admittedly, without the Grave, this 6 would pretty much be the perfect 6 for a Game 1, in my opinion, so. Would be surprised if we didn't just do the normal Amulet thing to our opponent. Of course, we're leading on Saga here, as it's important for getting the turn 3 second Amulet out, and thanks to the fact that we're playing the Garrison Stronghold build, we can actually just straight up kill our opponent on turn 3. Our opponent leads on turn 1 DRC. You got it. We're going to have turn 2 Dryad. See if our stuff is still alive by turn 3. Maybe our opponent has main board Blood Moon. I don't think they would even get the chance to cast a main deck of Blood Moon here before we just do the combo thing. Well, of course we're going to put a Dryad into play here. And I do think we're just picking up the Growth Chamber, so gotta have the things ready for the combo this upcoming turn. And yeah, just the, usual turn 3. See if our opponent has a discard spell. If they have a Thoughtseize to take our Titan, and we top deck Persist, we can just cast it and get Titan back into play. Seems pretty good. Our opponent just cast Tarmogoyf, sure. So you're dead. It's 3-4. Yeah, we have 20 points of damage. If they block 4 of it, then they'll be going to -1, so see what we draw. Hopefully it's not one of the relevant lands, like the Stronghold, or the Vesuva, or Boros Garrison, or Sunhome. And it's not, so yeah, this is just pretty straightforward. And our opponent doesn't even know that we have the Persist combo. How about that? Alright, let's search for a second Amulet. Boom. Hit 5 to make sure we have no yields. Well, this is one way to start the league here. Might as well play a Dryad, as we have another bounce land to go with it as well, so. Pick up a bounce land, play a Titan. Boom. Yep. And this is just lethal, I think. Let's make sure that our opponent's Goyf is now a 3-4. So even if they blocked exactly 5 damage, they'd still be taking exactly 15, since we're about to double haste to make it 10, and then double strike for 20. 20 minus 5 is still exactly 15, so we don't need to worry about their blocks here. I think our opponent is conceding. There we go, yeah. I was like, it's slowing down. I clicked something and it didn't do anything, so. Alright, our opponent scoops it up. Let's go to sideboarding. So, I'm pretty inclined here, especially since we saw a Godless Shrine, to believe our opponent is playing discard, which means they're going to be putting our Titans in the graveyard for us, so we don't need access to Unmarked Grave here, as we just saw in that game. It wasn't really doing anything. It only does something if we have Persist. On the flip side, though, our opponent's going to be trying to keep our creatures like Dryad and Tireless Tracker out of play, and they're going to be trying to strip us of our Primeval Titans via Thoughtseizes and things like that, so I actually do like Persist here. I'm not a huge fan of Lotleth Troll, but it is true that we can block with it and regenerate it, so it lets us permanently deal with a Ragavan, and if they want to try to kill it, they have to have something special to stop us from being able to just regenerate it. So maybe Troll's fine here. Necrogen, I'm not inclined to believe is going to be necessary, though. What do we want in this matchup? We probably want access to Bone Shards, just so we can kill our opponent's random creatures. I don't know, though. Discarding a card to do so doesn't seem that great. We're going to want Explosives for sure. I'm not sold that we actually want Bone Shards here. Are we really just doing anything we possibly can to get rid of our opponent's threats? I'm not sure. That cards in hand could be quite important. I'm going to go ahead and give Bone Shards a shot and see how it goes. I think it's possible we want, like, Foundation Breaker and Force in case our opponent's on Moons. I guess they had a 4-color mana base over there, so maybe it's less likely that they're doing anything with that. We're going to want Trackers, of course. And in this matchup, I'm not a big fan of Soul Guide, as getting the one-shot, exile a single card is not super relevant. But and using a card just to interact with their graveyard and get nothing else out of it, not great. I would play Relic if we had access to it here. And maybe it's correct to have one Relic, one Soul Guide, instead of have 2 Soul Guides, but whatever. Yeah, so we need to cut 2 more cards here. I think it's logical to go ahead and cut 1 Saga in case our opponent is playing Alpine Moons. We don't want to get got by that early. And another card. Could just be a Persist. I actually think that Persist will be actively good here, though. I think it's okay to trim 1 Summoner's Pact, just so we don't get punked out by Blood Moons or something. And we'll run it this way. Very cool. And we have double Amulet. We got Persist as backup copies of Primeval Titan here. We need a bounce land. Particularly a Rot Farm would be very good for this hand. But, I mean, we get to lead on some Amulets here. Stronghold in hand is kind of annoying, but, I mean, I think I'm inclined to keep this. We get 2 draw steps here as well, so, I don't know. I guess if our opponent leads on turn 1 Ragavan, we'll be in kind of bad shape. They bobble themselves, and they fetch. Presumably they didn't want to draw that card, so. Sacred Foundry, huh? And nothing. Well, I like our opponent playing nothing. That's for sure. They could be holding up, like, Wear and Tear or something like that here. Of course, the reason they fetch is because they didn't want to draw whatever card was on top. Lead on Basic Forest, and play out the Amulet here, as getting green sources in play early for a potential Garenbrig top deck is probably a good idea. Windswept Heath. Fetch. Overgrown Tomb, okay. We see the same 4 colors as before. Tarmogoyf. Interesting. Alright, well, we'll play a second Amulet here. We'll play the Stronghold, as if we top deck a bounce land, we're going to want to be able to have Stronghold and play to Vesuva it and Haste. If our opponent casts a discard spell and takes our Titan, we can fetch for Overgrown Tomb and Persist Titan into play and just do the combo thing. That'd be pretty good. Death Shadow. Was not expecting Death Shadow, actually. Makes a lot of sense. They are serving for the 2 with the Tarmogoyf, that's fine. Rot Farm? Another Persist. Not really what we were hoping for. I think we can actually do the combo thing by using Lotleth Troll, right? We get a tapped Overgrown Tomb, float black, leave a black floating, play Lotleth Troll, pitch the Titan, Persist the Titan into play. We'll have to get Vesuva to copy the Stronghold. Okay, so we gotta figure out what we're doing with our Titan after the sequence, but getting Titan into play is definitely the choice here. I'm gonna hit 5 to make sure we have no yields. We are not gonna pay the 2 life. We'd like this one to enter tapped. We'll untap, float a black, untap, float a black. Here's a Lotleth Troll. We'll go ahead and pitch the Titan. Hey, the Lotleth Troll thing is already working out. We'll persist the Titan into play. Seems good, seems good. We'll say yes to this one. So, Boros Garrison plus Vesuva to copy lets us put our Titan up to a 9/5, which is not enough to do lethal here. We would just be growing their Death Shadow an inordinate amount. Let's see, if we do Talari West plus Simic, that'd be 6 mana. We could transmute, leave 3 floating. We could get Explosives on 1 and play it. That really doesn't seem too bad. And if our opponent kills our Titan, we have second persist to bring it back. I think Exposes on 1 is probably the move here. We could also get T-West plus Rot Farm and do the same thing, but we'd have more black for being able to persist, but also hold up the regenerate. It's not bad. We could even get Bog, I suppose, here as well. I think we probably want to blow up the ones, though. Yes, I think it's going to be T-West for sure, and I guess the other one might as well be Rot Farm, as we're not going to have another T-West to transmute in the future anyways. Yeah, I'm going to go T-West Rot Farm. Intentionally not attacking here. Or I guess our opponent could have just double blocked the Titan and killed it, so... Float, float. Float and pick up the T-West. We'll transmute it, leaving a black floating. We'll get the explosives. We'll play it on 1. And we will pass to our opponent. Very cool. We got our first persist of the day. Shocking Stomping Ground, you got it. Go to combat, attack. Let's see, we've already got artifact in the yard. We don't have creature, though, so if we pop explosives, the Goyf will be going to... It's currently a 3/4, so it'll be a 4/5, I'm pretty sure. Well, I mean, I think we actually do want to block with Titan here. I guess that dies to our opponent having a bolt and a discard spell to take our persist. It's probably worth it, though. Alright, we'll pop explosives, first things first. This is, in fact, a 4/5. So we can block it now. And I think we will. Do we block with the troll as well? I think we do, actually. I don't see a reason not to. Of course, they want to kill the Titan, if at all possible. It'll be really hilarious when they cast their Kolaghan's Command or whatever to kill our Titan, and we just go, persist it back into play. No big deal. Become immense. Okay. Well, I guess that punishes us for blocking with both creatures. Yikes. I mean, at least we're not taking a bunch of damage this turn. Yep, persist this one. Channeler, okay. Now we're definitely getting Bog as one of the picks. Dryad. Wow, that's interesting. Well, let's go ahead and start by persisting the big guy into play. Yep. So we can get Crumbling Vestige and a bounce land. Play Dryad, play land crumbling, haste our Titan, and attack with it. Yeah, I think that's probably the best play. And here we'll get the Boros Garrison as the bounce land, I suppose. Just so we can easily haste or double strike in the future. We'll float a green. And we'll pick up the Vestige. We'll play our first land so we don't get punked out of our second land from Dryad. This will float a white, and we'll tap the Sunhome for a red using the Dryad ability. And we will haste our dude. Swing 7. Oh, we can just get Valcuts here and our opponent's dead. So, we got to do the persist thing, and it killed our opponent easily. Boom. Take that, opponent. Getting Titan out of play is not good enough anymore. You gotta exile that guy. Alright, guys. Well, I will see you guys in match 2. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And if you want to be part of future Twitter polls, then go follow me on Twitter. @FacedMenace is my handle. That way you won't miss a thing. Thank you for those of you that did, in fact, go ahead and put in your input on that poll. I appreciate you. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next match. This is Red Face Menace, signing off.